Okay, so today I put together my standing desk. Fits rather nicely in this hole. Obviously, I still have work to do to the floor, but I wanted to put this together and kind of get an idea of how it fits. I think it ended up pretty good. This has got it pulled out just enough to get the curtain in there. But yeah, it works good. Up and down. It goes really, really high. Like, really high. Like up to my neck. I'm not sure what the purpose of that is, other than like maybe if I was soldering something, like it would be right here, which that's actually kind of cool. So it's crazy. Like there's the light switches, and it's way above that. Chest height, I guess. So that height might come in handy. For now, I'm just gonna put it just below the switches. But all of these cabinets were ripped out to put a bunk up here, so I'm just gonna take all this out, and then we'll do something up here to cover up the wires, and that will give me a little bit more height for a monitor to raise up with the desk. So that's kind of what I want to see. So yeah. Well, after some grinding and smacking of hammer and everything else, I managed to get this electric step off of the bus. And it looks like it got left down, or the bus went over something rather steep, and this thing hit the ground and got very bent. So I am going to attempt to bend this thing back into shape. But it's going to be tough, because the way they made it is all these little pins that hold everything together. They're just like, well, they're pins, and then they used like a rivet type tool to sort of expand the end. So I'm either going to have to grind those out and take them out and then put everything back together somehow, or try to maybe use a torch and go to all the really bad bends, get them really hot to where they bend easy, and try to sort of spot bend it back into place, if you will. So this is going to be a nice little indoor project for the shop, since it gets dark at like 5 now. So got this thing off today, and I will play around with this week. Okay, so the other night, this electric stair, or whatever it's called, was extremely bent up. I believe somebody either had it out and forgot and bottomed out, or it just bottomed out, but it was bent up pretty bad. And unfortunately, I didn't think about doing a time lapse or taking any video when I was doing this, because it was just one of those deals where once I got started, I just went for it. But basically, the whole stair was like bent that way. And so what I did is, right here on the thickest parts, I heated it where it was bent. And you can see this one still isn't great, but it's one of those deals where I could straighten it more, I could keep beating on it, but I'm just gonna tear everything else on it up if I keep beating on it. I beat this thing mercilessly the other night. I heated it with a torch till it was red hot here and here. And then I set the whole thing up on end and rested like this on a block, and then just took a dead blow and just smashed this thing until the whole thing sort of was like back over far enough to where I could actuate the motor and open it up to an extent. And then once I got it opened, I was able to go in here and start straightening all these little individual pieces. And like I said, it's not perfect. You can see there's still a bow there, which I could fix, but you ain't gonna get it perfect. I mean, it was in really bad shape. this had popped out and had come out of the track. And so I had to take a wrench and like twist this out to where this would go back in. And the head on this was all folded up, and I had to take a chisel and carefully straighten the head back out on that once I got it back in the groove. And similar on this side, I had to kind of do the same thing, except it hadn't popped out. But anyway, after lots of beating and banging and bending and blow torching, I've got this thing relatively straightened back out, which I'll be honest, I'm kind of proud of. And I've just got some jumpers on here to where I can work the motor. Now, one thing I haven't done, this thing's got a control box on it, and a switch that hooks up right here. And the switch is nowhere to be found. Well, I haven't looked that hard, but I've got to look this thing up and see kind of how the wiring works. But I assume you've got power here because this is a big red wire, and then the frame and the control box is grounded to chassis. And then you got 3 more wires, which I assume is just like a switched ground. This black one probably goes to ground, and then the white and yellow are in and out. And that's controlled by the switch, which goes to this control board, which probably has like a relay in it. And maybe like a little bit of an overheat or an over current protection, so that when this thing's all the way out, that the motor stops. Kind of like when it's a lot like a window motor or a windshield wiper motor. More like a window motor in your car, where when the window goes up all the way, on some cars at least, when it sort of senses that it can't turn anymore in the current spikes or whatever. I'm not sure exactly how it works. Some of the electrical guys might know, but basically it'll cut it off so that you don't just sit there and hold the button and burn up the motor. I assume that this box does something like that. So I've just been hooking directly to the motor with the battery here and just being careful with it. But you can see if I ground this out, or if I hook it up, I can actuate it. And I came in here last night. It was binding, so it always went down really good because the gravity's helping it. And you got to consider it's mounted upside down right now. So it's working really great in that direction. But if I switch my terminal here and then go the other way, yesterday it wouldn't go. You had to kind of reach in here and help it get it started. And originally I thought, well, it's upside down. When I put it on the bus, gravity will help it along, and that's probably all it is. Well, that's not entirely true. It turned out this piece right here was bent in even more than it is now, and it was grinding on this, and I found some more places where it was still binding up, and I started straightening it out again. And now, at least last night, I had it to where it would open up on its own. Yeah, so that's pretty good. If it'll do that upside down while it's screwed to this table, it'll definitely come out when I mount it right side up on the bus. And then the question will be, will it retract, right? I'm sure it will. I mean, if it can lift itself up and come out like it is now, it should be able to lift itself back in when it's back on the bus. But yeah, so anyway, this is a big win here for the Re-Newell project, because these stairs, I did some pricing on it just to kind of see what I was working with, and they're like $500 or $600. These things, it's ridiculous just for one stair like this. Forget the ones that have like 3 or 4. Good Lord, they're really expensive. So I'm really glad this thing still works. I was prepared to rip the motor apart and everything else if I had to after I saw that price. But what I'll probably do now is, tomorrow it's supposed to be warm. I'm probably going to take this out in the yard and clean it up real good with some purple stuff, and then kind of see what I've got left as far as how much paint I've got left. A lot of this is just dirty. So I'll probably go in here with like a Scotch-Brite on my die grinder and grind that all as good as I can, and then just hit it with some primer and some paint and just cover up the bare metal. Try to keep it from rusting so much. One other thing, if you look right here, when I started beating and banging on that, I broke this weld right here. All that weld is really doing is keeping this thing from sliding on this shaft. The shaft just goes through and then they just welded it. It's probably gonna be fine from now to the end of time. But since I've been learning to weld lately, I'm probably going to clean this up and take my TIG welder and just just weld this little bead back up just to see if I can, just to use a new skill. So I'm gonna probably get into that tomorrow and then maybe put this thing back on the bus. It'll make it a lot easier to get in and out, because I'm constantly going up and down, in and out, working on that thing. So that'll make it a little easier. So anyway, that's the saga of the electric step. So back out here working on the automatic step again. So I decided to put this back on the bench and test out the control unit to see if it worked. Short answer is no, it doesn't. The test procedure is you're supposed to put power to the controller, you're supposed to ground the controller, and when you do that, the natural state is it's supposed to extend. So I retracted this step. It didn't do anything. Didn't spark, it's just not doing anything. And so I did a little bit of research. They don't make this control unit anymore. All you can do on this step is order a control unit and a motor in a combo. It's like $300. Well, the step's like $500. So, and if you recall, I beat this thing mercilessly with a hammer just to try to get it to where it would half-ass move. So here's what I'm thinking. Pretty sure that this control unit, all it does is sense current, so that when this step is all the way in and the current spikes on the motor, it stops the motor. And when it goes out, it does the same thing. And the other thing it does is it's got different ground signal wires. One is for a door switch that makes it automatically come out and then go back in. One is like an override of some kind, the white wire, I think. And then there's a yellow wire that makes it to where when you turn the ignition key on, that no matter what's going on as far as the other switches, like the door or something, it retracts the step when you turn the key on, no matter what. It's a safety feature, and it probably keeps you from doing what was done to this one, where it was down and it got knocked and bent. So here's the thing. This step is beat all to crap. And the whole point behind this is to try to save some money and not have to buy a new step. This thing still binds a good bit. It's not perfect, it just barely does work. And when I've been doing my testing, I've just been putting power directly to the motor. There's no brain to tell it, oh no, it's binding, stop, right? And apparently there's issues with that. If these get rusty or whatever, people have problems with them going halfway and then stopping. And there's too much resistance, and so the control unit won't even retract it because it's saying, oh, it's already in because I'm sensing high current. So long story short, I think having the control unit is, first of all, I don't need it. I can walk up there and hit a button to retract the step. I'm not gonna die. And I think if this was working, it would, every time this thing got a little bound up to where it's bent and stuff still, it would cut off and it just caused me all kinds of problems. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna delete it. So I've already cut the wires off. And so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go get, I have a little current tester, and I'm gonna hook that to this battery, and I'm gonna run the motor through that tester, and it's gonna tell me how many amps this thing draws. Once I know how many amps it draws, I'm gonna order a switch that says up down on it, and I'm gonna mount that in the doorway of the bus. And that's gonna be how I operate this step, because I don't know. I just don't see much point in spending a whole lot of money on an automatic step. It just seems like overkill to me. I mean, you could throw a cinder block or something down in front of the door. You don't even need this. I was just gonna try to get it working if I could. So anyway, that's the saga of the step continues. I'm gonna go get my little current tester and come back. All right, so here's my setup. I got alligator clips with, this is a 20 amp fuse, so if it draws more than 20 amps, we're gonna know. Anyway, that goes from gator clips to my favorite power pole connectors, goes into my little amp meter, which is kind of, I don't know, I think it's cold, so the LCD's kind of screwing up, but you can read it. And then from there, it goes to another set of power poles. It goes to gator clips that goes to the motor. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this clip and connect it, and this is going to be a little interesting. Let's see if I can put a little bend in that and get it where I want it. And then we're going to watch. Whew, it's going down. It's gonna be difficult. I don't think this thing has any kind of max feature or anything on it. But here's what we're gonna do. This thing's gonna bottom out here in a second. And when it does, I'm just gonna, now this is nice and sketchy here. Okay. I'm just gonna let it bottom out, and we're gonna see what it does when it's bottomed out. Looks like it went up to maybe 18. So that's probably not good for the motor at all, but let me see if I can retract it without having something catch on fire or cutting my fingers off or something. Yeah, 16, 17, and it just quit. So, whew, good to know. All right, so that's good enough. This thing really isn't designed to, I mean, the way I've got this thing mounted on I just got it clamped to the table, and it's having to lift all of this weight. It's not really made to do that. It's more made to just, you know, be like this and scoot in and out, and it doesn't really have to lift very much. So I think if it were right side up, it would work fine. And this battery's starting to get a little low. But the point is, the motor stalls at 18 amps. So there you go. 20 amp switch ought to do it. If it wasn't stalling out, it would probably not be near 18. So anyway, I will put this back on the bus. Well, first I got to paint it. I'm gonna clean this up. See, it's already starting to rust, surface rust. Fix some of these rusty spots. Give it a little shot of black paint just to slow things down. And put it back on the bus, wire it up. I'm gonna order a 20 amp switch, I think. They have a 30, but the 20 that I found is like lit and has an up down written on it and is nicer. Maybe there's a 30 that does the same thing, but looks like 20 will do it. I just don't want that switch to get hot and quit working after like three tries. So I'll get on the Amazonian and see what I can find tonight. and we'll come back and try to finish this thing up. All right, putting a fresh coat of paint on the steps. Since it's nice and warm in the shop today, I figure it'll actually dry.